Even though school is out for the summer, there's been a renewed focus on school safety in recent weeks. Find out what's happening locally next on Inside St. Lucie. Hello and welcome to this edition of Inside St. Lucie, SLC TV's monthly government affairs show. I'm your host, Eric Gill, Communications Director for St. Lucie County. And on today's show, we're going to talk with St. Lucie County Commission Chair Franny Hutchinson about school safety with St. Lucie County Sheriff Ken Mascara and Captain Brian Hester. But before we meet our guest, here's some upcoming events and announcements from the Board of County Commissioners.
Learn more about vacationing in your own backyard at the second annual Treasure Coast Tourism Showcase on Sunday, May 20th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Port St. Lucie Civic Center, 9221 Southeast Civic Center Place. This free event is a regional effort to promote tourism on the Treasure Coast and educate local residents about all the unique things to do and see here in the area. Don't miss this opportunity to win door prizes and staycation packages. There are still a few spots available for the Oxbow Summer Camp running June through August. With new and returning camps focused on the environment, technology, and the arts, there are both full and half-day sessions for students ranging from 6 to 16. For a complete schedule, visit theoxboweco.com or call 772-785-5833. St. Lucie County pools are opening for the summer season. The county operates 3 pools, the Ravenswood Pool in Port St. Lucie, Lakewood Park Pool in Fort Pierce, and the Lincoln Park Pool in Fort Pierce. For details about operating hours, prices, and programming, including swim lessons, visit stlucieco.gov/aquatics. The St. Lucie Mets summer season is in full swing at First Data Field, located at 527 Northwest Peacock Boulevard in Port St. Lucie. Games are underway through early September. Don't miss fun promotional nights such as Ladies' Night, Bark in the Park, and Dollar Nights. For tickets, call 772-871-2115 or visit stluciemets.com. Join us in the studio for Covering the Bases with the Mets on the third Monday of each month at noon. Featuring the St. Lucie County Chamber and the Mets, you can be part of the live studio audience on the corner of Virginia Avenue and 25th Street and learn more about the important work nonprofits are doing right here in St. Lucie County. Coffee with the Chair, hosted by the St. Lucie County Chamber of Commerce, is held on the fourth Friday of each month in the SLC TV studios in the County Administration Complex on the old Civic Center side, 2300 Virginia Avenue, Fort Pierce. Be sure to stop in for a hot cup of coffee and hear the latest news from the Chamber and the County. A reminder that the Board of County Commissioner meetings are held at 6 p.m. on the first Tuesday and at 9 a.m. on the third Tuesday in the Commission Chambers of the Roger Poitras Administration Annex, 2300 Virginia Avenue, Fort Pierce. The Board typically holds an informal meeting on the second Tuesday at 9 a.m. in Conference Room 3.
Now for the latest updates about all St. Lucie County Commission meetings, workshops, and events, be sure to visit our website at stlucieco.gov and click on our comprehensive calendar in the lower right-hand corner. And if you'd like to be added to our press release distribution list, send us an email at slctv@stlucieco.org, and we'll be happy to include you. We also hope you'll follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at St. Lucie Gov. We're going to take a quick break. Before we do, we're going to check in with the latest economic development stats with another St. Lucie Works.
The bed tax revenue shows that spring is still the best time to visit Florida, as St. Lucie County's bed tax collection rose 12% in February compared to the previous year. This marks the 11th month in a row that the bed tax has shown an increase. Overall building activity remained steady in February, slipping slightly by 4% compared to January, but February's 844 permits was still above average for the past year. Revenue for that time frame increased by 90%. The housing market is still strong. According to the Florida Realtors Association, the average median home sale price in February was just over $208,000, up 7% from last year, while condo sales were up 14% with a median price at roughly $201,000. St. Lucie County's unemployment rate dropped slightly in February to 4.7% compared to January's 5.1% and down from last February's 5.2%. Statewide, the unemployment rate remained the same at 3.9%. There were 2,300 more jobs on the Treasure Coast compared to last year, with the largest gains in leisure and hospitality with 800, health and education services with 700, and retail with 600. If you work for a local business looking for skilled or trained labor, be sure to contact the staff at CareerSource as they can assist your company with its recruitment and training needs. And if you're an individual looking for a new job, they can help you as well. Visit the CareerSource online at careersourcerc.com or call 1-855-4U-2-HIRE.
Welcome back to Inside St. Lucie. I'm your host, Eric Gill, and I'm joined by the Chair of the Board of County Commissioners, Commissioner Hutchinson. Thank you so much for joining me. And Sheriff Ken Mascara.
Thanks for having me.
Sheriff, thanks for coming on the show. I think this is the first time you've been on Inside St. Lucie.
I think so.
We give you have your own show in our studio, so you don't always have to come on ours, but we appreciate you coming on and talking a little bit about the history of the partnership between the board and the sheriff's office, especially relating to school resource officers in light of what happened in Parkland, Florida. Sure. I know you guys have gotten a lot of news coverage, all of Florida and the school systems and how they're going to handle that moving forward. But let's start with a little bit with the history of the SRO program, or the school resource officers.
Well, in 1984, a grand jury was convened as a result of criminal activity on school campuses. And that grand jury did a very thorough job in investigating past incidents and campuses. And they came up with a plan which included putting law enforcement on campuses. Then Sheriff Bobby Knowles did not have the deputies to do so, so he actually reached out to Leon County Sheriff's Office, brought those Sheriff's Office here to show them how the program would be initiated. And then in late 1985, early 1986, the program was initiated. So this dates back 32 years this year of the School Resource Deputy Program.
But the schools have grown a lot since '86.
Well, let me tell you, how many schools were here in 1986? Any guess?
I think there were only
12?
3 high schools countywide
There were
at
5.
that time.
5.
Are you kidding me?
1986.
Wow.
Total?
Yeah.
Wow.
And there were 5 school resource deputies put in those schools. The budget back then was $250,000 for the program. The sheriff, then Bobby Knowles, said it was going to be one of the most important initiatives he would ever do during his tenure as sheriff. And the then superintendent, Chuck Hill, thought the idea was so magnificent, he petitioned the school board to pay half the cost. And that continued through much of the program.
Yeah, and I remember up until around 2000 when the recession started to hit, there were some cutbacks, I think, because it used to be the school board, the 2 cities, and the county all shared in that cost.
Right.
That is correct.
And but the board continued to honor its commitment, and not to shame anybody else, because money was tight and people had to make decisions. But you all scaled back a little bit, correct? It was just middle school and high schools?
That is correct, and that occurred in 2009. We were at our height. And then the economic downturn occurred, and we all had to tighten our budgets. And we went from 43 deputies in the School Resource Deputy Program to 23. And the most important part of this is the school board took all their funding away. And I just want to say that the Board of County Commissioners, including this commissioner here,
She was on the board at the time?
Yeah, said, you know what, this is a very important initiative for our community. To make sure that our students are safe in schools, and they funded what the school board failed to fund, and that kept us in many of the schools, excluding elementary schools.
Yeah,
so.
And that's always a tough decision every budget year, I imagine, because the way, for those that don't understand the budget process, the board sets the millage rate based off the values, and then divvies those funds up to the constitutionals, the sheriff, supervisor, and I mean the clerk and the tax collector kind of make their own money, so to speak. But
But we still fund portions of their
we do,
budgets.
yeah. So we're gearing up to that season where everybody's putting their budgets together. But what was your mindset during that time, Commissioner?
Very similar to what the sheriff said. The relationship had been built over years, and the consistency in maintaining that's public safety. And when we think public safety, it's not always the adults, it's the kids that come into play just as importantly. And so the board felt very confident and very strongly that at least keep the presence of law enforcement in the schools, because it has shown, not just here in St. Lucie County, but across the nation, it works.
Right.
It is a deterrent, and there's a relationship that's built, one of respect for the students, the law enforcement, and they garnish a lot of information, the law enforcement does, along with the children for different reasons
Yeah.
and different avenues.
And I think that's an important key, and I know, Sheriff, you've talked about that before. It's not just a matter of having somebody there to respond to an incident.
Correct.
It's really there as a preventive measure and having a person and a figure for those students to turn to.
Positive mentoring of those students builds relationships a lifetime, and we see the dividends of that in those students.
Yeah, but following the Parkland shooting, you took immediate action to say, you know, we're going to go ahead and ramp back up, put officers right back in the schools, even charter schools, which you're not necessarily required to do.
That is correct. You know, as a staff, we talked about it, and as a community, we heard it. The message was pretty clear. We want our children protected. And as an organization, we sat down, we reorganized the office, we freed up some deputies, reassigned some deputies, and the shooting occurred, of course, Valentine's Day, February 14th. I think it was 10 days later, we had a deputy in every public school campus, and then 2 or 3 days after that on the charter school campuses also.
As a parent of 2 kids in those schools, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I know I have parents come up to me all the time and say, you know what, I never thought having a school resource deputy there would make me feel the way it does.
Sure.
And it just, you know, they're overwhelmed with appreciation.
Yeah, and another step you took was to reach out to those that sell guns, those licensed gun dealers in the county, to say, hey, would you consider a voluntary ban of some of these, you know, assault rifles like AR-15?
Correct.
How did that go?
Well, you know, the message we heard was twofold. First, we want our children safe in schools. That's what precipitated our action to put the deputies back in the schools. And the second one was, how could an 18-year-old buy a semi-automatic assault rifle? And I heard that wherever I went. And I reached out to some gun dealers who were friends of mine. And I said, what is your position on these assault rifles and selling them? And they said, well, we do not sell them to anyone under 21 years of age. So they already had policy in place, many of them.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and sent a certified letter to all of the gun dealers here in St. Lucie County asking if they would voluntarily cease selling assault rifles to anyone under the age of 21 until our Florida legislature decides how they want to address this. We sent the letters out, and the response was overwhelming. I would say 98% of them responded immediately with returning the letter or calling us and saying they would cease selling assault rifles until this all gets fixed in the legislature.
Yeah, and it's still not quite fixed in the legislature. There's still issues being discussed. I know
Right.
local governments are talking about, well, let's put our own ban in place, but the state already has existing law saying that we
They
can't.
preempt
Right.
anything that we do on the local
Yeah.
level, on many cases.
Yes. They're taking away that home rule, which
The
we
home
keep
rule
fighting
issue,
for.
yes.
But
Oh boy! And you know, talk about home rule. The legislature in Tallahassee seems to think they have all the answers for what occurs in our community. And after the Parkland shooting, they had the special meetings to address that, and they went ahead and mandated the influx of our new school resource deputies. But like in other things, they sure didn't put the funding that we need.
As we all
And,
passionately call it, the unfunded mandate.
of course, and our next segment, we have Captain Brian Hester will explain how many personnel is going to be needed, what the funding is going to be required, and what the shortfall is expected.
yeah.
Because a lot of what the sheriff just said is very important, because it started evolving and we're all still just getting through
Of
all
course.
the pages and pages of
Yes.
new requirements and what that means to us at the local level.
Sure, but we have to figure it all out and have our budgets done by the end of September. So
That is correct.
Right, and well, even before
For
that,
that,
'cause we're
but the
always so
hearings.
I know that the sheriffs,
May
by
1st.
law, by state law, they're required to have it in by a date certain to us, and granted, we can make changes, but the bulk of it
Sure.
needs to be there.
Yeah, no, all that work starts earlier. The budget hearings are in
Yes.
September, but
Rewrite.
yeah, rewrite and adjust and I was interested in, you know, back in about a few weeks ago, maybe a month now, there was a group that went to Indian River County Board of County Commissioners upset about gun shows that being held at county facilities. And we got a couple emails, I think, but not
I
a huge.
received not a huge amount as I had expected, but we had gotten several come through.
Yeah,
and-
but I think it puts the board in an awkward position if gun shows are legal in the state, and if we
Yes, they
start
are.
denying the right to a facility, if they have the insurance and the funds to hold that
and
event,
they meet all the requirements.
Yeah.
It's a lawsuit in the making.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
so I mean, you know, and Sheriff, do you all work with the gun shows at all? I mean, I know sometimes you go there for extra security or.
If it's held at the fairgrounds, we supply the security. If it's held here at the Fence Center, I believe the city does.
Yeah.
But I might be wrong on that. But yeah, we partner with the gun shows for security. And as you both mentioned, you can't supersede state or federal law. And,
Yeah, just because you don't agree with the event.
right.
that is correct.
We had commissioners before that was, you know, wanting us to promote events at these facilities that weren't county managed events. And I
Right.
said, but then how do you get in if the Tea Party has a vote out the incumbent rally? Do we promote that? Or probably not, you know, and so,
Sure.
but they, as long as they have the insurance and it's a legal event, they can open it
You
up.
can't
And-
prejudice against anyone.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
Or
those-
any group. So
Any
it's,
group,
it's
yeah.
one of those.
Yeah.
We
you
do
just
what
have
we
to.
can do, and whether they're there or not, I mean, it's a safety issue, and it's knowing that they've got law enforcement, local law enforcement, not that
Correct.
they bring in somebody from out of town that doesn't know.
Sure,
That,
sure.
That's extremely helpful and I think beneficial to all of us.
Yeah, and it does generate revenue. I mean, for the county, it's
Right.
an event that's well attended.
It's a
and-
rental fee.
Oh, yeah.
Right, they're not giving discounts.
Yeah, exactly. Like the nonprofits, the chili
Right.
cook-offs, and
Correct.
those folks. Well, Sheriff, one of the things I wanted to ask you too, a couple of years ago, the county was considering a 1/2-cent sales tax, and I believe you were supportive during
Correct.
that time because some of that money was going to go to new vehicles, which the board found money for those
They
vehicles.
did.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, the board is asking residents to support that again this election. Hopefully, you are supporting us as well, because I would imagine if we get you new vehicles but don't pave the roads, they're not going to last very long for you. So,
Ironically, you say that. I hit a pothole yesterday on 25th Street that knocked one of the weights off my wheels.
let's mark that on 25th
yeah,
Street.
yeah.
That's great.
But the 1/2-cent sales tax is going to be a great infrastructure investment for our community. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Just drive around our roads, see the backup of traffic on certain roads, and you know we need a little uptick in spending on our infrastructure. And what I like about this, it's about time that we take away the burden from homeowners and put it on people who are buying items in our community, which could be snowbirds, visitors, people passing through. So there's a lot of people that are now going to invest in our infrastructure rather than just the homeowners who live here.
And can I follow up with you? And I
Sure.
think you'll vouch for this one. Another part of that unseen, you know, you won't see it right off the top. But in moving forward, if the voters approve the sales tax initiative, that's one way of freeing up funding out of the general revenue
all means.
to pay for the needs that are now going to be coming into this budget year. So it's kind of like, that's not something you'll see on the list of explanations, but it does have a huge effect on the rest of the budget.
It frees up funds. Yeah, Deputy Russ and I were at Nettles Island recently for their HOA, and someone asked, well, with the sales tax, why can't you just use that to hire more deputies? Well, that's only, like you said, infrastructure. So we have to
specific.
build
Yes.
and,
Right.
and maintain stuff. But that frees up money from the general fund that then can be used for
Exactly,
additional.
and the sheriff has lightly touched on earlier, you know, when the state did pass all these new rules, there were funds allotted statewide, but again, not enough to do, and they're very restrictive in where they can be spent.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know,
and I
how
know
we
one of the
done it.
big issues in Port St. Lucie is not just roads, but sidewalks. And when we talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
children and safety, you all recall not too long ago, 5-7 years ago, we had 5 or 6 children that were
Hit on the way to
For
school.
school.
Yeah, because no sidewalks and they're walking in the roads and it's 6:30 in the morning,
Correct.
it's still
It's
dark.
dark.
And
Yeah. And that's
So-
one of the reasons why is to get the sidewalks put in. And the county is always, with the cities, is focused on getting the ones near the school
Schools.
being first. And then I had heard, and I'm not sure it actually passed or not, but I know there was a push to start, for the schools to start allowing walking within 2 miles, where I think presently, and right now it's a mile.
Right.
I
They
think
need
it's
to
2
walk,
now.
they don't get picked up by the
By
bus
bus,
stops. But
yeah.
now there was a push to go 2 because of the savings to them on fuel and so
Yeah.
forth, which makes sidewalks even more important if that's to
Absolutely.
go through.
Absolutely. Was there anything else we didn't get to mention we want to save time for Captain Hester?
I think we covered it all,
All right,
and
sure.
we look forward to a safe school year and
Yes.
a good budget process.
Yeah.
So,
All right, thanks so much, Sheriff.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're going to stick around with me?
Yeah.
All right. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside St. Lucie. I'm your host, Eric Gill, and I'm joined once again by Commission Chair Franny Hutchison. So thank you so
see you
much,
again.
Commissioner, for
Thank
sticking
you.
around. And Captain Brian
Brian
Hester.
Yes, sir.
I almost
Thank
called
you.
you Lieutenant. I didn't want to downgrade you. But
That's okay. That's okay. Haven't been that long.
That's true. It was a recent promotion for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're here to talk a little more. The Sheriff gave us some history on the school resource program. We always call it the SRO, but you're going to give us the future and where we're going, because that's part of your duties there at the Sheriff's Office now.
Yes, sir. School resource division or school resource unit does fall under my division, so it's become a very engulfing part of my job recently.
And I imagine after Tallahassee's mandates, it became even more so.
It did, and with Senate Bill 7026 and what we have to do from a law enforcement standpoint for the safety of the schools and the requirements of that bill, it's really become the big topic for not only our commission, but the Sheriff's Office and our command staff, figuring out how we go forward.
Yeah, and what are the specifics of that bill? Because I know there were different talks. Some of it was a school guardian program, where the schools could then opt to provide training to teachers or janitors, and then they could be armed. But a lot of school districts and even sheriff's offices across the state didn't really like that idea.
Correct, and there's a list of mandates that are in the Senate bill. Some have to do with mental health, some have to do with school security or the school policing programs, some have to do with crisis intervention teams. So there's a lot of mandates. Law enforcement is involved in the majority of those as well. But from a standpoint of school resource deputies and school, what they call a school safety officer program, you have a limited amount of choices based on the mandate. One of that is putting an SRD or an SRO in all of the schools, and that's mandated that they be in the schools during school activities.
Is that, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, does that include, did they ever work the numbers down? At one point I was like 1 per 1,000 students, 1 per, is that part of what came
So there's
through?
a lot of I guess misunderstandings with the
Yes.
Senate bill. The Senate bill never came out and actually said per 1,000 students.
Okay.
There was some suggestions in early writings of the bill
Exactly.
that would be a mandate, but that was never in the final bill to
version.
mandate. However, when taking into account a school and how many SRDs that you have to put in that school, we look at several factors. One is the population of that school. Two is the how spread out that school is. A campus like, an elementary school is more confined, whereas a high school campus is much more spread out. We have to look at the past history of calls for service or activity of our SRDs in that school and the need for additional resources in those schools. So there's a lot of things we look at, but we are not mandated by that per
By number
1,000.
or-
But it is a general guideline that we can use to help in determining how many SRDs in specific schools.
So I imagine I know the sheriff said too, you made some reorganizations to get those deputies in those schools now. But over the summer, I imagine you're going to have to be doing some hiring and staffing up.
We are, and very interesting things in situations like this come up. We're not the only agency in the state of Florida that is trying to hire.
67 counties, right?
So I've been to several of our colleges, our police academies, and my team, we have been starting our recruiting process. And what we're finding is everybody else is there recruiting as well. And when you're recruiting brand new officers, they look at specific benefits as to which agencies they choose. And there's agencies that are raising their starting salaries. They're providing sign-in bonuses. They're providing relocation stipends. And it's becoming very, very competitive throughout the state of Florida to get these SRDs and get them hired, because we're a medium-sized county, what I would consider law enforcement-wise, and these agents, 67 counties are doing the same thing we are.
Yeah. And imagine you have to find the right temperament too, not just to be an officer of the law, but to have to work around high school kids all day, or elementary school kids, or they got to be approachable and be able to build that relationship.
It is, and so therein lies another issue that we deal with is your selection process for specialty units is obviously, we have certain requirements for any specialty unit that you've have some experience as a deputy, and you've learned to be a deputy, and then like you said, in the schools it takes a specific temperament. So one of the things that we run into is if we fill our school resource deputy program with all of our experienced and our senior deputies, then we leave the other units with brand new deputies. So there's a fine line there that we balance.
I'm sure there's a lot of issues while making sure they're cross-trained, that they can move in and out when it comes to needs within the department itself as things that come up through the community. So they have to have it all,
and
no matter what.
The commissioner brings up a great point, and that's one of the things that the sheriff and the sheriff's office has always done, is there's always lateral movement, and there's always cross-training, and the ability to go to this unit or to that unit. And the sheriff is very big on that type of cross-training. That is what allowed us, post-Parkland, to be able to take deputies from different areas and put them in our schools. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
Sure. So now, do you have a total number yet on, because I know at one point the state said, okay, we're going to set aside $67 million, it's almost $1 million for every county, but that $1 million is probably not going to cover what you all need.
Right, and the funding for the different counties is based on a formula, based on the number of schools, based on the student population. At the end of the day, we have 44 schools in our county that are considered public schools. They're publicly funded schools, so that includes the charter schools, which there's 4 of, and then we have Palm Point, which is its own district, and then we have the 39 other public schools in the county. So there's 44 schools in the county that we have to fill next year, starting 2018-2019 school year. We need 51 deputies at minimum to man those schools. Based on, like I told you, the formula, it's not necessarily per 1,000, but some of our high schools, we put 2 deputies in. And their population is anywhere from 1,800 to 2,700. And then based on other criteria that we look at. So our need for those 44 schools is 51 deputies, just to put the minimum amount of deputies in those schools. The other interesting thing about the mandate is that we have to have SRDs in every school. It also states that we cannot leave a campus unattended. So currently, or in the past, if a deputy made an arrest on a campus or had a Baker Act, or we have to go do a house check, or we have to handle a truant's issue, or we have court, any of a number of things that other duties that a deputy would have to leave campus for, the deputy would leave campus, notify the principal. Road patrol would take, our patrol would take a call at that school if it was needed during that time. Well, now we cannot leave the campus unattended. So when you look at that and you take a standard relief factor, which is an industry standard for law enforcement, a relief factor, then we come up with an equation that gives us a total number that we need. And the total number that we need is 67 deputies to maintain a proper relief factor and to maintain a deputy in our schools at all times.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the size and space of schools, and I mean, my son's going to the MOA program at Harbor Branch next year. Technically Westwood High School, but he's going to be at MOA at Harbor Branch.
Have to cover,
so you've got basically one high school, but 2 different locations.
That's correct.
And
that's correct.
Yeah.
It's amazing what all is coming out, and I'm glad you're here today to help explain that. And one of the things, though, I would like to say is this is not being decided in a vacuum through the Sheriff's Department or the Board of County Commissioners. It's really being done in conjunction with the school board, with the two city law enforcement are involved in the discussions along with the community as a whole. So, I mean, it's not, you all didn't just arbitrarily pull numbers out or use formulas to get them. It was what was best for our community because, I mean, I'll give the school board some kudos here. Many years ago, they took the initiative to go in and harden and secure up a lot of our schools, you know, as far as who can come on the property, who can't, how they come on, where they check
Photo
in.
ID. Yeah.
There you go. And they took a lot of heat for that. People were very upset over that, but I think that has helped us in the long run. And that's one of those, when you say there was money set aside for hardening of schools, well, our schools are already there.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the requests, I think with the school board is going to be, can they use those funds and cross them over
instead of
under the state
like the
rules.
reverse of the
And there's-
sales tax,
right.
instead of using it for staff, use that infrastructure money for
Right,
staffing.
and they're still waiting on the decision to be made in Tallahassee because it is still very new. And it may be after the school year starts, you know, before you ever find that answer out. So I think that's important, you know, for everybody to understand. There's no decisions been made in a vacuum as we try to work through this. How are we going to get there and how we keep our kids safe?
And to add to what Commissioner Hutchinson said, in fact, we formed a committee immediately after Parkland. And this committee is made up of Port St. Lucie, Fort Pierce, St. Lucie Sheriff's Office, the school district, and I know I'm missing somebody, school board police.
Someone from mental health too.
There's
wasn't it?
mental health on that committee. So there's a very large committee. There's a steering committee that came up with objectives that we wanted the actual committee to work on together. And it's all of the things that came out in the Senate bill. So, for example, they are reworking the training that we give to the schools and the students in a crisis situation. What would be our old Code Red training? They're reworking that training, and everybody's agreeing on it. Everybody's at the table. Everybody's got input, and we're following what the mandates, because that's part of the mandate as well, that training
There's
takes
training
place
too.
every so often. And it says who has to be a part of that training and who has to teach that.
And I know you guys do a lot of that active shooter training during the summer in the school buildings. I mean,
Yes.
we've helped with the 10-8 show to get out there and show that work being done. And it's important so you guys know what the building layouts are and your deputies are familiar with it.
That's correct.
Any other things we need to mention before? I know the sheriff left. I was going to put him on the spot, but I'll put Brian. I know Russ goes out to a lot of HOA groups and stuff, and I don't know, Captain Hester, if you would do that or you just make Russ go. But I know if residents have questions, y'all can call they can call the sheriff's office. Commissioner Hutchinson, I know you've gone to homeowner
Right,
groups
talked
and condo
about it.
associates, talked about a number of issues, whether it's sales tax or SROs. And so if folks have questions, I'm sure they can check out the sheriff's website and our website and make that request. But
They can, and we. I try to go to a couple of meetings a week with Russ. He probably hits 7 or 8 a week.
he does.
Right.
And I try to drop in and make it to all of them throughout a quarter. And that we're starting to have lots of great questions, lots of great input, and people can. They can talk to us whether they're calling the sheriff's office directly, or they can go to our website, www.stluciecountysheriff.com, and we have a tip line, which is an information line as well. They can send an email, request information. If it pertains to school resource, I can get back with them immediately. And in fact, the interesting thing is I've even set up, I've had people send information and questions about schools, and I've even contacted them back, and they've come in and sat down in my office, and we've had meetings and just kind of put them at ease as to what we're doing and where everything's going. And sometimes they just want to know.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that there's also the program that you have that you tell the kids to do.
The Rad Kids,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's more than just the parents. It's also the kids themselves need to have a program and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
When you see something, you tell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
and
smart
then
program. That's
there
correct.
You go. So there's a lot of things in the thing that'll keep our kids safe, hopefully.
Absolutely.
And it won't be without trying. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to know that our school resource deputies, become much more than, their primary focus is security of that campus and security of those schools. But they become so much more than that. They become mentors and friends, and they bring programs to those schools, and they work with the staff at those schools and discipline issues and parent issues and handling things. So that's one thing that I've learned since I've been a captain and been a part of this is it's not just a deputy on a campus. It's so much more to the community than that.
Right.
Sure. And speaking of partnerships and keeping kids safe, I do want to thank the Sheriff's Office. I know you guys are partnering with our pools and our
Yes.
Parks and Rec program, and some of the school pools are opening this
Soon.
month. Yeah, and the weekends, and then the full time in the summer. And I know the Sheriff's Office has been a big supporter of helping us with swim lessons, and that's a big safety issue for our community.
Yes,
And
it is.
so we thank you for that.
You're welcome. And plenty of summer camps coming up for the
Yes.
kids. Plenty of swim camps. So
Visit both our websites
Visit
to
our
find out, and
websites.
then Facebook. I know Brian Beatty does a good job with y'all's Facebook page and puts it up there. So, Commissioner, anything else we didn't
That-
get to mention?
Thank you for having me
Thank
here
you,
today.
thank you, Captain. for
thank
coming
you.
on.
Thank you.
And thank you, Captain, for
Commissioner.
being here.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a break. Before we do, we're going to check in with another St. Lucie County Library profile.
My name is Sandy Henry Gordon. I am the branch supervisor of the Morningside Library. I've been a librarian for about 20 years now, 12 years as supervisor. As branch supervisor of the Morningside Library, I make sure that everything runs smoothly as far as scheduling is concerned, making sure that we have enough staff in the building, coordinating all of the programs, outreach activities, whether it means going to a school, and meeting with teachers and things of that nature. Currently, the Morningside branch has more programs than any of the other branches in the county. My favorite program is our regular book discussion group. One of the great things about that is that it's a chance where people not only discuss the books that we choose, but they also have a way they develop a lot of friendships, and I know some of them are lifelong friends as a result of the book group. One of the things that many people say is that the books that they read in the book discussion group, they don't normally read on their own. So they're happy to come and learn about different cultures, and when we share ideas and different opinions, those are ways we learn and develop and become more well-rounded. So my all-time favorite book, I must say, is the Bible, especially as a supervisor and a leader. It encompasses, I believe, every leadership principle and practices, which is pretty much built and found its foundation, especially in the Proverbs. And that's my reason for choosing the Bible as my all-time favorite book.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Inside St. Lucie, and we hope you'll tune in again next month. If you have topics or subjects you'd like to see covered here on the program relating to St. Lucie County government, give us a call at 772-462-1791 or send us an email at slctv@stlucieco.org. And if you'd like to see previous aired episodes of this or other SLC TV programs, visit our YouTube page at youtube.com/stluciegov. I'm your host, Eric Gill, and for myself and the staff, thanks for watching.